Bison Media Zone on WDAY Extra.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Bison Media Zone 2024 Fall Camp, a week old. Back with Mike McFeely from the Forum, gracing us this week. Dom Izzo with you as NDSU is into its second week of Fall Camp. We're officially 23 days out from the season opener, 22 now, 3 weeks from tomorrow. The Bison will play at the University of Colorado and Deion Sanders. Everything seems like it's going swimmingly out there. Have you seen any reports of what's coming out of Boulder these days?
Hazing, apparently, and fist fights over gambling debts, and seems like things are going well.
That's the environment that the Bison will be in 3 weeks from now, and all the attention will be on Colorado, and rightfully so from the national media. And there's an opportunity, Michael, for North Dakota State.
I keep saying, and maybe I'm selling North Dakota State short, and probably Tim Polasek and everybody else will be holding up, my predictions and my words for me if they happen to pull off the upset. But it's just a little unfortunate that this Bison team isn't more solid in some of the areas that we've been expecting. And maybe they will be.
Yeah,
maybe they will be. But it just seems like on paper, a week and a half or a week into fall camp, that there's still some question marks out there that are some important question marks.
Yep. I will say on the Colorado side of things, they are going to start a true freshman at left tackle. So for a Bison defense that we think, especially up front, might be all right, there's an opportunity there to potentially
think
exploit.
about that, starting a true freshman at a Power 5. And obviously he must be good. He's the best player that is there.
Yep.
There's no doubt about it.
But
he was a hugely sought-after national
Jordan
recruit.
Seaton was his name,
But it's true freshman.
Correct. Never played a college football game
Nope.
before.
Nope. And the Bison defense has some experience. We think they're going to be pretty good up front on the defensive line. And so maybe that's an advantage for NDSU.
Before we get into a couple topics here, we've each been up to practice a few times. Give me your initial overview, week and a half in, of how things have gone so far.
I think it's the same things we've talked about, Dom, I was watching the offense on Saturday when I went up there, and you just kind of wonder, like Tim Polasek has said publicly, where the playmaker is going to be.
Yep.
And there's certain personnel groupings where they're running, a couple of fullbacks on the field, or the second string tight end or whomever, and you kind of go, other than Cam Miller or Cole Payton, who else is going to make a play here? Who else is going to be the guy to make that big play? Seen a lot of John Gores on the field with the ones and twos, which is fine. I mean, if he's the best player, that's fine. But is he a guy that's going to be making big plays for the offense? Is Mekhi Collins going to be able to do something? Is Bryce Lance going to be able to do something? Rajan, all those names we've talked about now for the last 6 months, who's going to produce and be that guy? And we haven't even mentioned running back.
No.
I'm sure you'll get to that at some point today. But who's the running back that's going to be the guy?
And that obviously took a hit a week ago today. Barika Penu suffered an MCL strain, and those are not quick injuries. That could be a month to 6 weeks if he gets right at all for the football season. That's a concern because I assumed, Mike, going in, he was going to be running back one.
That was my assumption as well, that it was going to be Barika at 1, Marty Brown at 2, or TK Marshall at 2,
probably, and then
Marty Brown at 3,
at least to start.
Even though the coaches, from what we've been able to discern both publicly and privately, really like Marty Brown's potential. But he's a redshirt freshman.
Correct.
But without Barika, then you're already into your second guy who wasn't good enough, we thought, to beat out the first guy. So that's TK Marshall's been a good, solid back for NDSU now for several years. But is he the bell cow? Is he the workhorse? Is he?
We've never seen it.
I mean, Tamarick Williams, he didn't really do much last year other than maybe the Eastern Washington game and then the Montana State game in the playoffs. He was huge. But I don't know that TK Marshall measures up to Tamarick Williams.
Yeah, and that's position changes happen all the time, but Peter Halgo's a name that came and switched spots already from linebacker to running back simply because of depth. I think they need guys, but
they need guys who can do stuff. This is
correct.
Again, Tim Polasek is a guy who has publicly said, we need a running back to be able to put on the schedule poster. We need that featured running back. And I know that you and Jeff have talked about, who does Peter Halgo comp to? Could he be a Bruce Anderson or a Lance Dunn? I don't think, as I said on your show the other day, I don't think that's what they're looking at. They're looking at guys who can do multiple things, do stuff, make a defense, keep an eye on them. Remember Matt Entz always used to say, you could watch the defense's eyes, and they would follow wherever Hunter
focus on.
Lipke was.
Yes,
Wherever
yeah.
Hunter Lipke lined
Right.
up, all the eyes were going there. I don't know if the Bison have that guy right now.
No, that's alarming heading into the
Yeah.
start of the season. We talked defense earlier. There's one spot I think that does probably have a couple question marks, and that's corner. With the departure, obviously, graduation of Jaden Price. The Bison were already young there in 2023.
Yep.
They'll be younger in 2024. Now, they did bring in transfer corner. They have a new cornerbacks coach in Will Johnson. Anthony Shadime Alfaro is the young man from Cornell who's already getting high praise from Tim
Yeah.
Polasek that
Big kid,
potentially
big
can
kid,
play.
6'2".
You have Marcus Shepard back, who's his second year in the transfer from Bowling Green. I think Jaquise Alexander is a potential shutdown guy. He started at the end of last season, I thought really played well. Jalen Duffy's another young man who's a sophomore.
That
that's
name
starting
keeps coming up.
Starting to get some reps too. So, and Najee Nelson's in there, who's a redshirt freshman who played a bit last season. It's among those 5 that I imagine are going to be the rotation at
Which,
cornerback.
if you look back to last year, we weren't talking about 5 guys.
No.
We were talking about 1, and then who's the second one
We
going to
didn't know
be?
Marcus Shepard would
Right.
be the guy, right?
And
Yep.
so they're in a much better position
Correct.
this year. And if you're talking about Marcus Shepard potentially being the nickel back or the 4th guy and not being a starter as he was all of last year,
Then you're in a much
then,
better shape.
then you're in a
right?
much better
Yeah.
spot than you
Yep.
were a year ago. Like you, I've heard, and I had to write his name down, so Tony, my apologies if I say it wrong, but Anthony Shadime Alfaro, he's a guy that his name keeps coming up. You know, that's how we
Yep.
judge
Yep.
like who's on the eye or in the eyes of the coaches, the names you keep hearing, and you keep hearing his name. Obviously, Jaquise Alexander had a rough start to last year, couldn't get on the field
No.
until late, but then I thought played pretty well.
I thought the second half
at,
of last
at
year
the end of
played
the
pretty
year.
well. Yep.
Yep, and so they're just in a better spot, even if there are some questions there.
Duffy's name we've been brought up.
And
a couple
Jalen Duffy
times,
has been
too.
brought up
Yep.
a lot as
Yep.
well. And so it's kind of maybe gone from a position of extreme thinness and a weakness, at least
Yep.
early on,
Yep.
to maybe a position of, if not strength right away because of inexperience and kind of new guys. I'll bet by the middle of the season the cornerbacks are pretty darn good for NDSU.
And Mike, they're going to be right in the spotlight for that game off the top. I mean,
yeah.
it's Travis Hunter they're going to be going against, who might be the best wide receiver in the country.
Quarterback is okay for
Quarterback's
Colorado
pretty
too.
good,
I've heard
too.
he's apparently going to be
Yeah.
the 1 or 2 top draft choice in the NFL.
his
but,
dad
but,
says.
but that's going to be a challenge.
Yes, there's no
and the
doubt.
question for Colorado, like it was a year ago, is can they protect him?
Right.
Shedeur Sanders got hammered
Yes.
last year
There was a
and
video
got knocked
yesterday.
out of some games.
The offensive line didn't look much better in a video that they shared
Yeah.
yesterday. So
Yep.
going back to our point that we made off the top, I want to go back on the playmaking side on the offense because wide receiver is what we brought up. And there's another guy that's being brought, and that's a true freshman in Jackson Williams' name because Tim
Yes.
Polasek brought that up twice on unprompted on several occasions. And I don't know if that's a good sign or a bad sign that a true freshman come in and maybe make a splash. How do you evaluate that?
Well, I mean, R.J. Urzendowski is the obvious
No doubt.
comparison
Yep.
there that he came in as a true freshman
Oh.
and was outstanding and made so many big catches, even as a true freshman.
freshman.
National championship game. Had a couple of decent catches that were important in that game down the
South
stretch.
Dakota State playoff game.
Correct.
Won the game.
That was a pretty good
That was
catch
all
too.
right.
Yeah, good
Yep.
throw and a good
Yep.
catch there. But I'm not too concerned about a true freshman being on the field as a wide receiver because the former coach Matt Entz used to say, and I think correctly,
Hammered this home. Yes.
that the further away from the ball you are, the quicker you can get on the field.
Yep.
In other words, cornerbacks, receivers, and the closer you get to the ball, center, tackles, guards, quarterbacks, running backs, maybe not so much running backs.
Linebacker.
Linebackers.
Yep.
Then you need some experience.
Yep.
Receiver, not so much.
Yeah.
I've talked to somebody who's connected to North Dakota State for many years recently in a private conversation, so I don't want to share who, but they said that this Jackson Williams kid was something special. They really liked him, and they thought when the Bison brought him in, that he could be a guy potentially to see some time right away. So it's sort of working out that way.
I had Tyler Rice, former Bison receiver, who now coaches in Omaha, on the show last year on Hot Mic, and told me he will stretch the field vertically. He will play and play right away.
Yeah.
That kind of player. So he saw him up close. And he also saw Marty Brown. They could be two
Well,
Omaha guys,
sp-
just like there was in
Yeah,
2014.
and speaking of which, my person I talked with also said, you know what, Marty Brown could have helped the Bison last
Yeah,
year. He was
correct.
ready physically
Yes. Yep.
to help the Bison last year. Just didn't work out. But Marty Brown is going to be a big part of this offense this year.
Yeah.
You're going to hear his name a lot. They're going to give him every chance. And you've seen it in practice. He's made some cuts. He's made some explosions. He puts his foot in the ground, as the cliche goes.
Yes, correct.
And when he changes directions or stops and goes, there's not like a build-up speed where it takes him 5 yards to get going. He's going full speed, stops. He's going full speed on the cut. It's pretty good.
It's 9 days in, so this is an unfair question to ask, but I'm going to ask anyway. Talent level of the whole team, where would you say it's at right now?
I still think that it's not where it has been. I just don't. Defensively, I think NDSU is going to be pretty good.
I think they'll be better than they have been since the national championship year.
I think the front seven is going to be pretty darn good for NDSU. They'll be fine at safety when Cole Wisniewski comes out, and they'll find a second safety, whether it's Sam Young, who played fine last year, late in the year. The cornerbacks are the cornerbacks. As long as they can tackle, if the cornerbacks can tackle,
Yes.
that to me.
And the linebackers have to tackle.
Right,
That's
but
the thing.
but the cornerbacks, coverage is one thing. I think the cornerbacks, they have to be able to tackle at some point.
Yes, yep.
You have to be able to stick your nose in there.
Make a play.
Make a play, you know. And so I think they're going to be fine there. It's offensively, they have a really good quarterback starting. They have a really good second quarterback who might be the best player on the team offensively in terms of what he can
Correct,
do,
yeah.
in terms of what he can bring to the table. And after that, we're going to kind of have to wait and see, right?
Totally on the offensive line.
Gray Zabel is an NFL-type offensive lineman. As of right now, I don't know if there's anybody else up front that. Now in 4 years maybe things change. When a Jack Lewinsky is or a Bo Johnson or a Nate Schneekloth or whomever are seniors, then maybe that changes. But right now, the Bison just don't have those 4 or 5 guys up front where you go, wow, they're going to get a chance to play in the NFL.
Nope.
I mean, 21, like all 5 guys.
And the sixth guy got a
And the
shot.
sixth guy got a shot in the NFL. So I just don't see that. So that the talent level, I don't know if it's quite there. But Tim Polsek is bound and determined, I think, to get it back up there.
Yes.
And that's not to say that Matt Entz didn't bring in a bunch of good players. And Tim Polsek has said that
And he
publicly.
pointed that out, too.
The program's foundation is fine. I just don't know if the roster is as loaded as it was during the glory run.
I
And
don't
so
think it ever will be like that again.
well, not with the
frankly.
transfer
Not in
portal,
not in the
probably
current era.
not. But
way.
the last couple of years, there's been a clear gap between North Dakota State and South Dakota State. I think that gap is still there. I don't know if it's as wide, in part because South Dakota State lost so much. But North Dakota State and FCS is going to be just fine. They're just not going to be 15-0.
Shocker for fans there to wrap your mind around that, considering they had 3 unbeaten seasons here in the last 10 years. We'll break. We come back. NFL preseason gets underway as a bunch of former Bison set to make some debuts with new teams, including both Carson Wentz and Trey Lance. We're going to chat about that when the Bison Media Zone continues after this. Welcome back, everybody. Bison Media Zone. Nothing I'll have better in August when TV and newspaper guys are shooting cell phone video of NFL training camps, but that's Trey Lance.
I haven't been
working
to
out there.
last time I was at training camp for the Vikings was a couple of years ago when Trey was still with the 49ers and they were playing an exhibition game and had a double practice.
Yes, joint
practice
Yep.
at the TCO facility in Eden Prairie.
Yep.
Or wherever the heck it is, Lakeville
Egan.
or whatever. Egan,
Yeah.
whatever. They're all the same. All the suburbs are the same to me. But so it's been a while. But I mean, this is a big August for Trey Lance.
And this was not a great throw there.
That was
And
not a
that's-
good throw, no.
And we're going to get into that here as the NFL preseason begins in earnest this weekend. 17 different Bison are in NFL camps as we start the preseason. And obviously, the quarterbacks will get plenty of attention. Easton Stick finally got his shot last year. Saw enough from the Chargers that Jim Harbaugh decided to bring him back, so he'll be the backup. He'll play a lot, obviously, in this preseason with Justin Herbert actually coming back from an injury as well. But let's start with Trey Lance. There's the huge specter out there with the Cowboys always. Dak Prescott's contract deal. I know you've been talking with people that cover the Cowboys.
Yep.
This is a huge month for Trey Lance.
It is, and what I've been told is that all the training camp stuff that we're seeing in film and some of the interceptions and some of the mistakes that Trey is making, they count. Yes, it's a big deal. Yes, he has to be better. Yes, but the real test and where the Cowboys are going to judge whether Trey Lance has it or not is going to be in the 3 preseason games.
Yeah.
And they are going to give Trey Lance a ton of opportunity to play and say, show us whether or not you're an NFL legitimate quarterback because that question is still out there of whether or not he can do it. Whether or not just if he's not going to be the starter. Dak Prescott's going to be the starter. But Trey Lance has to show that he can be a number 2 quarterback in the league, and if the starter gets hurt, that he can step in and be a dependable, productive NFL quarterback.
Win them a game.
And win them a game or two.
Yep.
And he has not shown that at all. So it's a huge, huge August for his career and what becomes of Trey Lance from here on out.
And we're also seeing it. Carson Wentz is starting with the Kansas City Chiefs. I know you and I have both chatted on this, and we've talked to people that this might be, I don't know what he needs. He's in an organization clearly that is on top of the NFL. He's backing up the best player in the game.
Yep.
This might be what he's needed
Talked
for the
to
last couple of
Talked
years.
to some people in Kansas City as well. I was wondering how Carson was doing down there, especially with the past history of Carson Wentz, that
The reputation that follows him.
It just didn't seem like he wanted to be a backup quarterback, and that's not what he saw his role as. It appears as if Carson, because he's behind Pat Mahomes, has realized, I am now a backup quarterback to possibly the best quarterback in the game, and if Pat Mahomes gets hurt, and he's missed some games because of the way that he plays, he misses some games, that Carson Wentz is going to be ready to step in and, again, win a couple of games and keep the Chiefs competitive. Some of the guys that have been covering training camp for the Chiefs said the Chiefs haven't had a true, legitimate, really good backup for years for Mahomes, for years. And so it's a different vibe. And they said that in practice, Wentz's arm is still really, really impressive. It's like the writers and broadcasters are going, we just haven't seen this. We've seen, is it Chad Henne or, all these guys.
Chad Henne for a while,
And Wentz is a different, he seems to be fitting in. The team seems to like what they're giving, what he's giving them. He seems to be comfortable in his role and is just kind of ready to go if Pat Mahomes gets hurt.
I don't think the arm was ever in question. I thought accuracy and his ability to stay on the field.
Yep.
And frankly,
he ain't going to get hurt holding the clipboard.
No.
And so he's going to be ready to go.
I do think he earned some kudos for what he did last year. Obviously he waited for a deal, and frankly, I think both of us heard that there was an opportunity last year in Kansas City to do this. He still wanted to be a starter. That didn't happen. He ended up backing up Matt Stafford with the Rams and ended up playing a game, started a game because Stafford, they sat him out the final game of the season. Maybe that was the light bulb.
Yep. Last year was maybe his one last shot to be a starter, and it didn't work out in Washington. And so he said, you know what? And with the way quarterbacks get hurt in the NFL, and with the value of a starting quarterback, that's not to say Carson Wentz still can't work his way back to being a starter, because every team needs a starting quarterback, and they are at a premium in this league. A premium. There's only 32 of them, and some of them aren't that good.
No, some of the starting 32 aren't very good.
No.
There's a couple guys to keep an eye on this weekend. Saturday, this will be pretty neat because I know they'll play a little bit. Tampa Bay plays Cincinnati, so you got Cordell Volson and Cody Mauch facing off against one another.
Speaking of that 2021 team.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
There. Carson Wentz will make his debut with the Chiefs. He will play that game Saturday night. That'll be on the NFL Network against Jacksonville. And then Jerry Jones has been all on the Hunter Lipke train, Michael. The Cowboys play the Rams. That game's on Sunday as well.
Got that picture of Lipke. He looks like a man. I mean, not that he didn't at NDSU, but he looks like a grown you-know-what man right now.
Mauch, Volson, Lance, and Lipke all were on the same team.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That was a good squad. Well,
We're talking about the
glory days of NDSU football. Not that they can't return to winning championships, and not that they won't be in the mix this year. But you look at that lineup, that 2019 team, even the 2021 team that we thought, well, let's kind of see where they are. You look back at that and go, oh boy, they were really, really good.
Great to have you in studio again. Thanks for doing this. Mike McFeely joining us each and every Wednesday here. We're back again next Wednesday, get closer to the season opener for NDSU in Colorado. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, on the Bison Media Zone.